Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Rumpelstiltskin, great to see you. Ava, great to have you on. Simon, great to see you. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Jared, great to see you too. Stu, great to have you on. Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you too. Has Braverman gone yet? Not yet. I think it's on the cards, but we'll see later on. Hella, great to see you. Hope you're well. Pete, great to see you. Chatty Rat, great to have you on once again. Oraman, great to see you. Gene T, great to see you too. Shane, Robot Monkey, great to see both of you. Tiny Demolition Lover, hope you're well up there in Scotland. We have Killer, thanks for moderating Killer. John O'Sullivan, Eddie, Oraman, Leslie, Ronnie H. Who else have we got? FSM is the dog, great to see you. Wolf Pet, great to see you too. We also have Catherine, great to see you, Catherine. 91 Leeds, great to see you. Alistair, great to have you on, hope you're well. We also have the Lefty Boater, Lefty Boater, great to see you. We also have Young Ralph. Roisin, great to see you, Roisin. Eddie, great to see you. George, great to have you on. We also have the Big Marvinsky, great to see you. Tom Galadrina, great to see you. Mark, great to see you too. We have Inconsequential, great to see you too as well, hope you're well. Noddy Alcy, great to have you on. CGM, great to see you, thanks for moderating. And so many more. We're up to 220, so I can't say hello to everyone, unfortunately, but I hope you're all very well. I see number 3 is there. Brian Johnson is there too. Nick, great to see you. Ministerian, great to have you on. Hope you're well. Interesting. In Denmark, there are some elections going on. That should be an interesting result. Although I don't think any of the main parties are going to... It's not going to be the left or the right that's going to win. It seems to be there'll be some sort of coalition, I imagine. And so many more. So I hope you all had a great weekend, and start off with this pretty very serious situation that took place in Dover recently. This is the man who carried out the attack. He has been named, and what's interesting is, well, will probably come as a shock to very few people that he was radicalized by, well, some people. Farage isn't mentioned, but people like Farage have been mentioned in this article. So it says here, I will end illegal immigration. Who was the Dover firebomb suspect? Andrew Leake. So it goes on to say, Andrew Leake, the man suspected of Sunday's firebombing of a Dover migrant centre, has a history of sharing far-right content and posting racist comments online, prompting questions about how it took the police 2 days to treat the attack as an act of terrorism. In October last year, Leak 66 wrote that he had sent a parcel to the British government warning that I will end illegal immigration into this country within a year from the French boat side. Leak from High Wycombe, who was found dead after Sunday's attack, made no secret of his admiration for Tommy Robson, the founder of the English Defence League. He pictured himself online wearing a Union Jack face mask and frequently posted shared posts by Robinson and conspiracy theories by several far-right groups, including the New World Order and the Traditional British Group and Turning Point UK. In a post in July, Leak claimed all Muslims are guilty of grooming. They only rape non-Muslims. Last year he wrote a message to the UK government: if you dare to come for our children, we will come for you. If I cannot have freedom, then I will choose death. He also liked a number of far-right groups on Facebook, including Enoch Powell Was Right, Closed Borders UK, God Hates Islam, and Patriots Party. So this guy, I don't know whether you'd say he was radicalized by the likes of Tommy Robinson, but we can imagine which way he voted in 2016, and you can imagine which parties he supported. The right-wing media have to take responsibility for this as well. The likes of the Daily Mail, the Express, which have been pouring poison into the ears of the public for a long time now, trying to convince the public that, most of the people arriving in the UK are, members of criminal gangs or just want to cause crime or want to cause trouble, when in reality most, I think it's about between 70 and 80% of asylum cases are justified. They, are, was it 90, 70, 80% of applications go on to be granted refugee status. So it's not a majority of people who are involved in any crime, and anyone who eventually, exhausts their appeal process is deported under the normal circumstances. The problem here is, of course, and I said it before in a number of videos, is there is an attempt by the Conservative Party, the far right within the Conservative Party, including the Home Secretary, to weaponize this issue. And trying to score political points on this issue has consequences, and this is the consequence. Tom, thanks so much for that super chat. They're illegal because the British government makes sure of it. Look, there are... If the government wanted, they could provide safe passage for these refugees, these asylum seekers. They could allow for legal channels to be set up. There are reports that the French government had given the option to the British government of setting up an asylum centre in France, where people could claim asylum and then have their claims processed. And the British government said no to that. I still think the issue, of course, is asylum claims are not processed fast enough. And this has created a backlog. And, why are they being processed so slowly? Because the government don't want to invest the time and the money in speeding up the process. And it's easier just to say, well, the problem is the people, and not do anything about it. And then this creates a backlash in the public. It creates a backlash about, when it comes to housing people. Well, if there's a backlog and the people can't move into regular accommodation, they can't go and find work because they're not permitted to do that while their claim is processed, then where they have to stay in this type of accommodation. And if the backlog gets bigger and bigger, then of course there's going to be overcrowding. And then you have situations like that took place on Sunday. Now, within the centre on Sunday, there were talks of rioting. There were reports of rioting because there is overcrowding and people can't tolerate the conditions. Tonton, thanks so much once again for that super chat. The migrants come from the British Commonwealth. A lot of them, yes, do come from the British Commonwealth, from former parts of the empire. But, this is a consequence of having an empire, but the racists and bigots don't want to accept that. Thanks for that super chat. It's really depressing. The majority in Europe, Germany is taking in the most refugees. But if you listen just to the likes of GB News, and if you read the Sun newspaper, you think Britain is taking all of them. And whoever is coming is not coming to flee persecution or to make a better life for themselves. They're coming just to cause problems. That's the rhetoric. That's what people are being forced. That's what people are being fed on a daily basis. And that's why you're hearing more and more from the public who are saying, oh, we need to stop them, because they don't understand why people are arriving in the UK in the first place. The majority of people arriving in the UK are doing it because they have connections to the UK. In the same way that people who are going to France, they have connections in France. They speak French, or they have family and friends living in France. The same in the UK. Why are people moving to the UK? Because they have friends or family in the UK. They have studied English. This is about migrants, but asylum seekers are different. But of course, both are lumped into the one group. and demonized. And then the ironic thing, of course, is when it comes to Brexit, it's more difficult now to deport people because the UK can no longer take advantage of the agreements it had as a member of the European Union. And there's a shortage of workers. So you would imagine that the British government would be opening the border completely because we want to bring people in because we need them. Industries are crying out for workers, and refugees want to work. They want to rebuild their lives, and they want to build their lives in the UK. They want to contribute to society. They don't want to be living in a hotel or in an asylum centre. They want to actually live in a home. They want to rebuild their lives. They want to get jobs. They want to contribute to society. 99.9% are like that, as in 99.9% of all societies want to contribute. They want to do something good. They don't want to live like a refugee. Frecklepunny, thanks so much for that super chat. Invasion, swamping, we're full. Inflammatory words have consequences. We have seen with the firebombing, and just ask the Pelosi family. Yes, so I haven't been following as closely as I should. Maybe what's happening with the Pelosi family. So there was an attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband, as far as I know, by people from the far right. I don't know what the situation, but it seems that even Donald Trump's son was making light of this, was making fun of the situation, was joking about it when this man was attacked by people who supported and continue to support his father. Anyway, I don't want to stay too much on this because it's it requires the UK government to come clean about what they've been saying over the last number of years. And the fact that the Home Secretary was talking about invasions and talking about illegals coming into the country and this illegal crossings. This is feeding into this narrative, feeding into this paranoia within the public. People are becoming more and more afraid. And if you have the Home Secretary, pouring petrol on the flames, this is extremely dangerous. And unfortunately, I don't think this will be the last of it. Anyway, going on, it's just a summary of what's happened today. Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, said he would choose his words more carefully. He would choose his words more carefully when asked if he would defend Suella Braverman's calling migrant boats an invasion, but refused to criticise the Home Secretary. Even within the Conservative Party, there are people saying, yeah, we need to tone it down a bit. But of course, they won't openly criticise the Home Secretary. Now, he's a minister, he definitely won't do that. Backbench MPs certainly will, like, for example, Roger Gale has been extremely critical of the Home Secretary. Kudos to him for doing that. Ministers won't, and it seems the strongest Robert Jenrick could go was, yeah, I wouldn't use words like that. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Feels like we're living in the film V now. V as in V for Vendetta, or V as in the one about the aliens. Both are probably applicable because the Tories are, especially the ones in power, are definitely like some sort of lizard people. But when it comes to V for Vendetta, yes, the Conservatives have gone they've adopted BNP policies and rhetoric. They've adopted UKIP policies and rhetoric. If somebody had woken up from a coma of about a year ago, they would imagine that that UKIP had taken over if they were listening to the Home Secretary. It's this constant drip, drip, drip that we get further and further to the right, further and further into a state of fascism, that you wake up one morning and you hear the Home Secretary talking about an invasion, and it's sort of normal. That's the worst thing about it. It's become normalized, Johan, thanks so much for that super chat. Though the British would be the last to complain about people moving to another country, India and the rest might have a few words about that. Yes, it's this constant, and you hear it with the Brexiteers as well. I went to Spain and how was it? It was good if there wasn't so many damn foreigners there, or the people who've moved to Spain to retire and then voted for Brexit because they don't like foreigners. And these are the same people who will defend to the death the idea that the empire was, delivering democracy to the quote unquote savages. This is what's extremely problematic about this mentality, is that it's a type of exceptionalism. When we do something, it's correct. If other people do it, it's wrong. And as was pointed out earlier in the stream, a lot of the people coming to the UK now are from ex-colonies. That's a consequence. Now we're talking about maybe from Pakistan, from India, from Bangladesh, from to a certain extent Syria as well. These are parts, they either influenced by the British Empire or directly parts of the British Empire or the Commonwealth. This is a consequence of having an empire. I think Syria was part, or maybe I'm thinking about Palestine certainly, but Syria maybe was at some stage part of the British Empire, or had some influence, was influenced by the British Empire. Anyway, I forget. Somebody can correct me in the chat. Child asylum seekers who have recently arrived in the UK on small boats say screening officials have put pressure on them to say that they're adults. Why is that happening? The Tory MP Sir Roger Gale has said he does not trust Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, on the issue of the Manston Migration Centre, which is in his constituency. Yes, he visited the centre a few weeks ago, and he said that there was overcrowding. He said that the catering facilities were excellent. He said that the accommodation facilities were excellent, but the problem was overcrowding. And as I said, the overcrowding is a consequence of a lack of real grip when it comes to getting the processing done. So there's a huge backlog, and the Tories don't want to spend the money to hire people to do the processing. They don't want to speed up the processing. Either it's for ideological reasons or because they just don't want to spend money. I don't know which it is at this stage, but it could actually be a bit of both. Matt Hancock, I think we're living in a simulation, guys. I'll come to this in a little bit later on in the stream, but Matt Hancock, the former health secretary, has had the Tory whip suspended after it emerged that he entered the jungle for "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here." It's somebody who allegedly was handing out contracts to his mates for PPE. The guy who made an arse of the reaction, the how can I say, the program to deal with the pandemic at the beginning. Didn't he lie to Parliament? I don't remember. It just, there have been so many lies going around so much and so often. I think Matt Hancock lied, or maybe I'll take it back if I'm wrong. Tars, thanks so much for that super chat. And then they came for me. Yes, it's definitely heading in the direction of outright fascism. We on the Sunday roast we were talking about the right to protest and how that has been infringed, how there were laws created for one man, Steve Bray. They're also talking about cracking down on so-called eco-protesters, the ones who are protesting against environmental damage. It'd be great to have somebody from the Stop Oil protest on to talk about that. And then you have all the corruption as well, and the attempts to protect the corrupt as well. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. Hancock following in the footsteps of Mad Nads. Yes, Nadine Dorris, of course, appeared on the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I think it was about 10 years ago, where she ended up eating, was it ostrich testicles or something like that? Like, I'm not a fan of these types of shows. I just think they're completely ridiculous, and shouldn't we be investing in more educational programming? But anyway, this is and then the fact that Matt Hancock is going on this. Somebody joked online, it was, Hancock in the Jungle sounds like some sort of soft porn movie from the 70s. Yes. And I think Matt Hancock will try to contribute to that. Controversial and chaotic vote on fracking last month did involve some MPs shouting and crowding closely together, but there was no evidence to indicate bullying or intimidation. An official report for the Commons Speaker has concluded. So the House of Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, asked for a report to be carried out by the Sergeant of Arms, I think it is, carry out a report into allegations of bullying and intimidation, and it's come back that there was no evidence, which is interesting because Chris Bryant, the Labour MP, said that he had images on his phone, he recorded it with his phone, of an MP, a Tory MP, being shoved and pushed by, was it Therese Coffey and Jacob Rees-Mogg, intimidated into voting a particular way, which of course is against the rules. Nothing's going to come of this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sir Lindsay Hoyle, didn't really investigate anything, or just whatever. Maybe it's me being overly cynical, because I just think this guy is in for he's sitting there hoping that he's going to get a peerage, because he's protected the Conservatives at every turn. How many times has Boris Johnson lied? How many times has Boris Johnson walked out of the chamber when there were opportunities for him to be called back? Even recently, Liz Truss and the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, treating Parliament with nothing but contempt, and the Speaker just sits there and twiddles his thumbs. There's been a huge surge of social media attacks on Rishi Sunak, drawing on anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, casting the former banker as part of a globalist plot, with a sharp spike after Boris Johnson pulled out of the Conservative Party leadership race. Yeah, this is a consequence. So I've seen a lot of this online, where they've been trying to say that Rishi Sunak is part of some global plot. And who's pouring petrol on the flames here as well? Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage using terms such as globalist and World Economic Forum, stuff like that. These people understand that there are lunatics out there, and the lunatics need to be fed. The lunatics need some red meat. And you have the likes of GB News, and you have the likes of other far-right media outlets and far-right individuals, knowing that they can continue their grift if they feed red meat to these lunatics. That's what they are, crazy people. And then these crazy people end up taking out venting their craziness in public. We've seen it with Jeremy Corbyn's brother, what's his name, Piers Corbyn. We've seen it with these COVIDiots marching in the street, talking about how there's, the world is coming to an end, and that there's a dictatorship. And, when there is a real threat to democracy, these people are talking about vaccine passports and stuff like this. Anyway, let's move on. The world has gone mad. Completely mad. Tugendhat announces task force to defend the UK's democratic integrity. A task force has been set up to protect institutions, including Parliament, from being subverted by foreign powers. Tugendhat, the security minister, has announced. Well, the best way would just be to end donations to political parties. That would be the best way to and Parliament being subverted by foreign powers. In a statement to MPs, MPs Tugendhat said the Prime Minister had asked him to lead a task force to drive forward work to defend the democratic integrity of our country. The task force will work with Parliament, departments, the security and intelligence agencies, and devolved administrations and the private sector. It will work to better protect the freedoms and institutions we hold dear, institutions such as this very House. The task force will look at the full range of threats facing our democratic institutions. This will include the physical threats to members of this Parliament and those elected to serve across the country. Now, generally, I would be supportive of something like this, but, a big problem with this is there are people who are donating directly to the Conservative Party. And we don't know who these people are. We don't always know who these people are. And when we do actually find out who some of these people are, they have connections to Vladimir Putin. Boris Johnson played tennis with the wife of one of Putin's former ministers. And she paid him over £100,000 to play tennis with Boris Johnson. What was she getting back in return? What was her husband getting in return? That's the question. One thing is about hacking. One thing is about, and this is probably following on from the Liz Truss's personal phone being hacked. But this is one thing. But what about the pure and open corruption that's taking place? I think this is a much bigger threat to national security than Liz Truss's personal phone being hacked. Because if Liz Truss is using a personal phone, you can't stop that. There's no amount of security can stop Liz Truss from being an idiot. But if we end these political donations, then you'll end up having to drive it underground. And then if it's underground, then you can have the police involved. Because it's perfectly legal for somebody to donate 10, 15, 20,000, 100,000, £500,000 to the Conservative Party. Or any political party. But it's the Conservative Party in particular, because they're the ones in power. If you want to influence... and I've said this before, and I've half joked about it, how, if you want to get a good return on your investment, go down to your local bank, ask for a £10,000 loan, and say, I want to invest in my local MP. And, £10,000 will go pretty far. You may even get two for the price of one, depending on your constituency. And you'll probably win a contract, or you'll have, you'll be able to influence policy to protect you or to give you some sort of leg up, improve your business. Money in the bank. This is the problem. You need to get rid of that. Instead of this sort of window dressing, talking about, we need to deal with cyber threats. Yeah, cyber threats are a concern, a massive concern. But really, it's about the corruption. Get rid of that, and you're getting rid of 90% of the problem. But they don't want to do that. Don't forget the dodgy people who paid to meet May. Yes. There's a whole list. This goes back years. And what about David Cameron as well? And people before him. It goes back and back and back. Well said. And thanks for that, Magic. You're completely correct. As I said, it's important that there are measures in place to avoid these types of problems that appeared this week with Liz Truss. But that's the tip of the iceberg. The real iceberg is the corruption itself. Goes on to say, related to, of course, the previous story, the one from before, Number 10 claims significant portion of people crossing Channel in small boats are economic migrants. And it goes on. So Rishi Sunak told Cabinet that the UK was a compassionate, welcoming country. The Prime Minister's spokesperson told journalists in a readout that was said at Cabinet. Where has Rishi Sunak been recently? Haven't heard from Rishi Sunak in a long time, especially when it comes to what his Home Secretary has been saying. The Prime Minister said that this will always be a compassionate, welcoming country, and pointed out to the success of the Homes for Ukraine scheme, where 100,000 Ukrainians have now have now been taken in across the UK. He said the UK's ability to do this depends on having control of our borders, and that the entire government will be working together to further grip this important issue. Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, still also stressed the need for a cabinet for the whole government approach to tackling problems caused by people crossing the channel in small boats, the spokesperson said. But the spokesperson would not say whether Sunak could say the arrivals of asylum seekers amounted to an invasion. He said he had not asked Sunak if he would use that term himself. Of course he won't. Asked the Prime Minister. Asked if the government would describe the arrivals as an invasion, the spokesperson said the Home Secretary was seeking to express the sheer scale of the challenge that the country faces. The problem is not the numbers, the problem is the backlog. But it's about distracting. It's about throwing red meat to the base. It's disgusting, it's dangerous, and we see the consequences of that, where people have been radicalized by the language from the far right, the fringe, and now the fringe has become mainstream because you have the Home Secretary using exactly the same language as the fringe were using before. Alistair, thanks for that super chat. So the Tories looking at threats to democracy, that's them. Look at themselves. I solved it free of charge, Max. Yes, they need to just look at themselves. They're the ones who are the threat to democracy. And especially for people in Scotland who are looking on going, we didn't vote for this crap. We didn't vote for these charlatans and crooks, but we have to live with them. George Parker from the Financial Times says, Suella Braverman has succeeded in turning the debate about her failing to grip the migrant crisis and security breaches into a discussion about her use of language, i.e. talking about an invasion. Classic dead cat strategy. And maybe he's correct when he says that this is about distracting from her own failings. And maybe it has succeeded. Maybe it's we're talking now about her language and not about her failings and her the fact that but I did talk about it in response to what she said in the House of Commons, where she said, yes, I resigned. Yeah, but then you were put back in your place, put back in your position. She would say, I resigned and I apologized, or I apologized and I resigned, and that's it. Yes, but you're back in your bloody job. Beyond insane. Thanks, Alistair.
Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick. Minister, lovely to see you.
Good morning.
Look, I do think it is to your credit that you have personally visited Manston. Describe what you saw when you did.
Well, good morning. Conditions are poor at the site. They are improving. We are trying to ensure that as many people as possible leave the site to better accommodation, mostly in hotels, as quickly as possible.
The Home Secretary a few days ago said, it was yesterday on Monday, when she said, but we're spending £150 a day for these hotels. But you're talking about moving people out into this accommodation, and you're complaining about moving people out into the accommodation. Which is it? Is it a good idea to move people into hotels, or is it a bad idea to move people into hotels?
You have to remember, this site is designed for around 1,000 to 2,000 people. It's a site where people are brought to very soon after they're saved at sea or on beaches by Border Force and Royal Navy personnel. They're then taken to Dover, given immediate care in extremis, and then brought to this site where they're processed, they're given some support, some medical care, and then they're taken on to better accommodation. It's not designed to be somewhere where people stay for a prolonged period of time. It is, by necessity, relatively austere. The task for us now is to ensure that it gets back to its normal working pattern. It has a population of around 1,000 or 2,000, and we don't get into this situation again.
But did you see, as the HM Inspectorate report shows, did you see people sleeping on floors? Did you see evidence of people, including children, being detained for longer than 24, 48 hours? Did you see people not being allowed to use the toilet without the door being open?
I didn't see what you just described about toilets. There are people there who've stayed for over 24 hours.
Sleeping on the floor.
There are people sleeping on the floor on mats, like camping mats. This is not a satisfactory situation. I'm not here to defend that. I've been in this role for less than a week, and my job is to sort situations like this out and improve them, and that is exactly what we're doing. We have procured more hotels very rapidly, and more are coming on board literally every day, so that individuals can leave this site. We've also put in place better conditions there. So, for example, there is now a very good medical centre at the site providing care for people, particularly for the families that are there. I would just say that the root cause of what we're seeing at Mansfield is not the government, but it's certainly not the brilliant Border Force staff.
It's actually illegal to hold children for more than 24 hours. So the UK is breaking the law here. Now, the people who are working in these centres, it's not their fault. The buck stops much further up the supply chain, up the chain of command, I should say. The problem here is that there are political decisions taken by the Home Secretary, and it's not just the current Home Secretary; it's also the one before, Priti Patel. This approach of we have to act tough, we have to treat these people with contempt, in order to convince them not to come to the UK. But it's not working. So you have to try a different approach. What you need to do is you need to speed up the processing of the asylum claims. Because if you can speed up the processing, you can get people out of these centres faster, and you can get them into the community where they can rebuild their lives and they're no longer refugees. That should be the end goal, to get as many people into ordinary life as possible. Because what happens is, what they do is they find a job. Maybe some of them start a business, or they contribute to society, and that's exactly what 99% of them want to do. In the same way, 99% of ordinary residents, people who are already in the country, people who are born in the UK, 99% of people in most countries want to contribute to society. And refugees are the same. People have gone through traumatic experiences. They need support. They need financial support, but they also need psychological support. But when they have received that, they're going to contribute to society. And we're talking about people who are doctors, who are surgeons, engineers, scientists. We're talking about people who have a lot to contribute to society. But instead, the Conservatives, especially the far right within the Conservative Party, understand that there is a section of society that are permanently angry, and you want to have them on your side. That's why they put in place people like Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, people who are speaking to them. And it's no longer dog whistles, it's a bloody foghorn that they're using, speaking to them directly in the language that they understand. Invasion. We're short of hearing about parasites and rats and vermin and stuff like that. We're just short of hearing that. That will probably be the next rhetoric we're going to hear. That's what they want to hear. That's what that voting bloc want to hear. And trying to chase those people, as we saw, is extremely dangerous. Magic, thanks for that super chat. There are reports that centre officials were pressuring children to say that they were adults, so they didn't need to worry about the 24-hour limit. There we go. I was wondering why that was the case, and then as you said here, and as the journalist said as well, if they're not children, then they can stay more than 24 hours. And you're not the first to say that as well, so that's probably the case. Remember, Max, Rwanda is a beautiful and horrible place to send these refugees, according to the Tories. Yes, Rwanda is both a beautiful place, a wonderful place to restart your life, but it's also a deterrent.
Who are managing the site, the contractors, the catering stuff. The problem is that thousands of people are crossing the channel illegally every day.
It's not illegal to claim asylum, and as part of that asylum claim, the method you use to arrive in the country is irrelevant to the claim. So it doesn't matter if you arrive by plane or by rubber boat, that should not influence The UN is saying this, not me. The UN is saying that you should not use that as a measure on whether somebody receives an their claim is valid or not. And even if it were the case, 90%, close to 90% of asylum cases in the UK are deemed valid. So that's not an argument.
Landing at Dover,
Indeed,
and we as a
will
country
discuss
are
that in a
struggling
second,
to know how to support them because our asylum system was not designed to receive thousands of people every day illegally crossing.
Indeed.
And this is what really frustrates me about the journalists. I wish they would push back on this and say, is it illegal to cross the channel and claim asylum in the UK? Is that illegal? Push back on them. Challenge them on this because they know they are talking absolute horse shit. Okay? They know they're talking horse shit and they know that they can get away with it because the media don't really challenge them on this. And this is the cornerstone of their argument. These people are arriving here illegally. So if they're arriving here illegally, we don't have to treat them like human beings. We treat them as cargo. And this is what they're trying to do. This is why they're trying to keep... And this is why it's so important for the media to push back on this and ask these difficult questions. You'll piss off the journalist, so you'll piss off the politician, you'll piss off the minister, because they're there to push this narrative that these people are arriving here illegally, and because they're arriving here illegally, we must treat them with contempt. Instead, the journalist should be asking, why is it illegal to arrive in the UK by boat when you're claiming asylum? Because the UN doesn't say that. There aren't any conventions that say it's illegal to arrive by boat.
And we will discuss that in a second, but simply put, is Manston fit for purpose?
Yes, I think it is. It's not operating correctly today. If we can get it back down to a population of around
double capacity
1,000.
It's running at double capacity at the moment. People are sleeping on the floors and they are being detained there for longer than...
You're asking me, is it fit for purpose? Mm-hmm. Yes, it was fit for purpose a matter of weeks ago. The issue is there are just far too many people staying there today. If we can get the site back down to what it was designed for, which is 1,000 to 2,000 people staying for a very short period of time, around 24 hours...
And who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for getting it down to 1,000? If there isn't enough capacity, you need to send people to hotels. But you don't want to send people to hotels. See, there's another problem here. You don't want to send people to hotels in Tory constituencies because that pisses off the constituents. You know, the people who have been reading the Daily Mail and the Express all their lives. So these people, hey, wait a minute, all these refugees are coming into our area. We don't want that. So they put pressure on their local Tory MP. And what does the Tory MP do? Puts pressure on the Home Office. And what does the Home Office do? Okay, we won't send people to hotels. So what? So where do we put the people? Well, we keep them in these centres. And then hope, fingers crossed, that we don't have any problems, knowing that there will be problems. Magic says it's not illegal to enter the country. It's illegal to not leave when you have no right to be there. Yes, it's if you look at quote unquote illegal immigration in the United States, for example, a lot of Irish people, include, you know, putting my hand up, not me who've done it, but Irish people, overstay their visa, and then they're deemed illegal because they have a visa for a period of time. They overstay that visa and then they're deemed illegal. Now, it's undocumented migrant or illegal alien, I think is the term. But it's you are breaking the law there and you have to be deported. But we're not talking about this here. We're talking about people arriving in the UK, claiming asylum. And in close to 90% of the cases, the asylum... is deemed valid. The application is validated. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. I've heard people talking about illegal migrants as if that's a valid phrase now. Yes, so it was. They keep changing the language. Illegal migrants. What are illegal migrants? You know, are we talking about people who had a visa and then overstayed the visa? No, we're not talking about people like that. See, the problem is also the language. People don't understand what the terms that should be used. And the problem is the media don't correct journalists when they lie, and they don't correct callers when they call in. They don't correct the papers when they publish these lies and this misinformation. And, you know, a lot of this comes back to Brexit. Not to bring Brexit into every discussion, but look at what happened when it came to the referendum. People didn't know what they were voting for. People still didn't know what they voted for. You had, you know, Farage saying we can be part of the single market and we will definitely be out of the single market. We can be like Switzerland. No, we won't be like Switzerland. We'll be like Norway. No, we won't be like Norway. Daniel Hannan saying that, yeah, we'll definitely be part of the single market. Somebody else saying, no, we won't. We're going to control our borders if we leave the EU. Now we're talking about borders not being controlled. Once again, but the politicians were happy to tell these lies and to mislead the public in order to achieve the goal. The goal, of course, getting Brexit over the line. And the same, it seems to be the same here. Just lie to the public in order to convince people, to get people angry. Because if they're angry, they're going to vote for us. They're not going to vote against us. But I think the Tories are playing a very dangerous game also, because if they're seen to fail here, if they seen to be not acting in the interest of the racists and bigots, then the racists and bigots will go elsewhere. And you know, what I think may happen is that Suella Braverman will eventually be replaced with somebody maybe a bit more moderate. And then the racists and bigots will say this was a betrayal. We're going to vote for the Reform Party, or we're going to vote for the new UKIP or whatever. And then the Conservatives will have to run back to the far right once again. Because the Conservatives know that if they move too much to the right, they're going to lose the centre. And the vast majority of people don't agree with these policies. So the Conservatives are worried about going too far to the right because, as I said, they'll lose the centre and then they'll lose the election. Because the Labour Party are moving to the centre, and that's where most of the votes are. Now, of course, there are the fringes, and they are important. But if you're able to build up enough support in the centre, you will be able to weather the losses in these marginal seats. But it's going to be very damaging for the Conservatives, because if they move to the centre, they're going to lose these racists. If they move to the racists, they're going to lose the centre. It's no win-win. Johan, again, thanks so much for that super chat. You think the UK will exit the ECHR so that they don't have to accept refugees and throw the Good Friday Agreement away at the same time? No, I don't think so. They mention it all the time, but they won't seriously do that because it would be damaging to them on the world stage. And there's no real benefit here, because this is not about the rights of the refugees. This is about keeping racists happy. And using this type of rhetoric is keeping the racists happy. You don't actually have to do anything. You don't actually have to. And we've heard this before. We've heard it from, what's his name? Dominic Raab. We've heard it from Priti Patel. We've heard it, I think, even from Boris Johnson. We've heard it from many people within the Conservative Party about, exiting from the European Convention on Human Rights. We saw it there recently when it came to the Rwanda case. There was, it was immediately after that, when the plane was stopped, we need to get out of the European Convention on Human Rights. Then it sort of died down. So yes, of course, you will be hearing about how, yes, we need to get out of this European, foreigners telling us what to do, Europeans telling us what to do. They will, of course, say this, but it's a tool. It's a rhetorical tool. It's a narrative that they can use. But they're never really serious about actually going ahead with it. As you said as well, it would damage the Good Friday Agreement, and it would undermine Britain on the world stage, and there would be consequences from the United States. In the US at the moment, there is probably the Republicans are going to take the House. The Democrats will probably hold on to the Senate. But it's there's no one in the I don't think there's very few people in the Republican Party who support undermining the Good Friday Agreement. I don't think there's anyone really. And there's no benefit for any politician in the US to undermine it. There's a cost to undermining it because there are a lot of Irish people maybe in their community and they want to support the Good Friday Agreement. So there's no benefit for any politician in America going along with the UK doing away with the Good Friday Agreement. Thanks for that super chat. So I don't think there's still a very, very remote chance, and there are some crazy headbangers. But these are people who generally don't understand Northern Ireland, who've never visited Northern Ireland, and frankly don't care about Northern Ireland. They'd prefer Northern Ireland just to detach from the United Kingdom than to waste any real political capital on it. The Conservatives don't have any seats there. There's no real benefit in holding on to Northern Ireland for the Conservatives. And, the sooner the Unionists in Northern Ireland understand that, the better. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so of course we'll have our comedy moment, and we'll be back with the serious stuff in just a jiffy. Serious and unserious stuff with Matt Hancock, so don't go away. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm sure you will.
So what's it like wearing a turtleneck?
Very, very restricted.
What's your favourite musical?
The Producers.
Oh, yeah.
It's an absolute classic.
Do you know any of the songs? Okay, where's the best place to take someone on a first date?
Funerals.
And after the funeral?
We're going shopping as well, right? And money is no object.
Right, I'd like to now talk about the Downing Street casual sex parties.
I haven't had casual sex with anybody.
Sorry, the Downing Street formal sex parties. What were they like?
Incredibly emotional.
What is a soggy eaten rub and tug?
Doing that in public is incredibly painful.
And do you have a name for your...
The reasonable worst case scenario.
And how big is it?
Endless.
That's good, I suppose.
I don't hold it against anybody.
Who had the smelliest willy?
Yeah, well, I think that's...
Don't really know why I asked that. Okay, Matt, have you ever had a boner in the House of Commons?
I work so hard not to do that.
If you do get one, how do you deal with it?
You just have to hit it on the head every time it comes up.
Does that help?
It helps a bit.
Quick fire round. Do you know how to ride a horse? What would most Tory MPs say about poverty?
I just don't care.
And finally, how do you feel about giving interviews in an online format?
Every single word you say will be taken
and turned into a cheap video desperately trying to get retweets. Yeah.
Someone's got to do it.
Thanks, Matt.
Wonderful. Sticking with Matt Hancock, who is going to become... I just wanted to remind you of this video from many years ago. This is Matt Hancock being extremely weird. So on the left is, I think she's a councillor, or maybe she became an MP, I don't remember. This is, I think, back in 2019, where Wendy Maisley, councillor. She was running to be a councillor back in 2019, and Matt Hancock turned up to give her some support, but he acted extremely weird, and you can see how uncomfortable she has been in this video. Watch.
Parliamentary candidate for Warrington North for the Conservative Party. It's been absolutely fantastic being here this morning with Matt Hancock. My second visit this week, actually, seeing some of the amazing work that the staff are doing here at the hospital in quite incredible circumstances, really. We've talked a little bit about the space capacity, etc.
Yeah.
So...
Well, it's been good, hasn't it, to see the increase in space that there is because of the investment that we've put in, and also talk to the staff and some of the patients about what more is needed. And I just really hope that you can be that strong voice for Warrington in Parliament, making the case for the hospital and for everything else that's needed in Warrington.
Absolutely. It's one of my 6-point plans, along with Andy Carter in Warrington South, to carry on going forward for a new...
She's doing that Michael Jackson pose, where he bends backwards. It's like, keep away, Matt Hancock, and whatever you have in your pocket.
New hospital for Warrington. So vote Wendy Maisie, Warrington North, on the 12th of December for the Conservatives.
That was really weird. Anyway, so as you guys know, Matt Hancock is going to... oh my God, let's get into this.
The MP Matt Hancock going into I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Joining me now from Westminster, Sky political correspondent Tamara Cohen. And Tamara, it's not the first time a politician has done this, is it? But there has certainly been quite a lot of fallout already.
Absolutely. We've confirmed that Matt Hancock...
Sorry, before I read this, I want to read some of your comments. Oh my God, I'm going to break probably. My blanket, where's my blue blanket? Hand on cock and he's uprising. Did he try? Did you try for a day? I'm not sure. He was perving. His Hancock is showing. Jesus. He's told to act. They're the best of friends, and he has never met her before, let alone spoken to a woman. He's let out from time to time. He looks like he's about to pounce. Hancock's half hour. In lift and car with the same bird. Want to come back to my flat and see my embroidery? Hancock had a pointer for her. Creepy. Okay, what the fuck is wrong with him? He's locked on like a snake eyeing a rat. What a lech. What's he holding from? What's he hiding from? Yeah. Me wants sexy fun times. Try that, Matt. Oh my goodness, okay.
The former health secretary is to appear on I'm a Celebrity, which begins filming in Australia this weekend and airs on ITV from Sunday. He, of course, was health secretary during the pandemic, then had to resign over an affair with a colleague, and pictures of that during the lockdown. He is now a backbencher and has decided to appear on the show alongside other stars like Boy George and the rugby player Mike Tindall. We've heard from a political ally of Matt Hancock about his decision to appear on the show, who told us that it's the most watched show on ITV and it's an incredible opportunity for him to engage with 12 million Britons who tune in every night. This ally went on. Matt has always believed in communicating directly.
This is the guy who was responsible for the initial phase of the response to the pandemic, and he messed up. And he allegedly gave contracts to his mates, PPE contracts, and then resigned in disgrace. And now he's going to go on a TV show. Unconfirmed reports that Sir Ron is going on to I'm a Celebrity to beat Hancock for top spot. You never know, Reagan Elite. I have to keep an eye on that guy because, you know, he's always plotting something behind the scenes. Thanks so much for that super chat. Johan, thanks so much once again. Why does not the UK news say something about when the UK exports refugees to Rwanda, they will import refugees from Rwanda at the same time? Yes, if there are people coming from Rwanda to find a better life in the UK, like they're going to be also sending people there. There's no mention of the people coming in. A lot of the language at the moment is about people from Albania. For some reason, Albania is the problem, it seems. And of course, the demonization of anyone from Albania, which is going to, of course, as a consequence of this rhetoric you're seeing in the media and from politicians, this is going to have an adverse effect on people living in the UK from Albania. You know, ordinary working people, ordinary decent people from Albania are going to get tarred with this brush as well, that, oh, you're just here to steal and you're just here to cause problems. And, you know, this is going to create a xenophobic response towards people from Albania. We've seen it before. Thanks for that super chat. Did the landlord from his local ever produce PPE? Yes. No handshake from Sunak. His face.
With the people he represents, whether that's pounding the streets in West Suffolk, that's his constituency.
Don't use pounding and Matt Hancock in the same phrase, okay, please?
Where this ally says that a team will be supporting constituents who need help with anything. And they say politicians like Matt must go where the people are. It's also
Instead of actually doing stuff for his constituents, he's going on TV to be a celebrity. It's like Boris Johnson. What is it with all of these Tories? What is it? Like, Boris Johnson, what does he do? Instead of staying in his constituency and doing work for his constituents, he's on holiday. He's in the Caribbean. He's having, flying around in fighter planes.
That he was approached about it a little while ago, but decided not to go because of the political turmoil. But he now feels that Rishi Sunak has a firm hand on what's going on in government. Now, of course, the controversy here is that he would be going while Parliament is sitting, and he has already had the whip suspended. We've heard from the chief whip of the Conservative Party, Simon Hart, and this is what he told us. Following a conversation with Matt Hancock, I have considered the situation and believe this is a matter serious enough to warrant suspension of the whip with immediate effect. So despite Matt Hancock's protestations that he will still, via his constituency office, be supporting local people, looks like the whip has been suspended for the duration that he is there, and depending on how long he is able to stay in the competition, he may miss quite a bit of time in Parliament. Of course, he's not the first MP.
And he'll still be paid. He will be paid as an MP, even though he's not working as an MP. He'll have the whip suspended, meaning that he won't be able to vote in Parliament. But there won't be a by-election. There won't be a replacement. This is insane. He's off on a bit of a holiday, bit of fun, when he's supposed to be representing his constituents. Now, I hope that his constituents take this into account at the next election and boot him out. Many of them probably think, oh, he's a bit of a celebrity now, we should vote him in once again.
To appear on this show, or indeed other reality TV shows. Nadine Dorries, who was until recently in the cabinet, appeared on I'm a Celebrity some years ago and also had the whip withdrawn. We've also seen former politicians.
It's an absolute joke. What is the point in being these people representing their constituents? And I said this before, Jacob Rees-Mogg is not there to represent his constituents. He's there to represent his peers, other multimillionaires, hedge fund managers, people with money squirreled away in offshore bank accounts. That's what he's there for, to make sure that legislation is pushed through Parliament to protect those people, including himself. These people don't care about warm banks or people going to food banks or people not being able to pay their bills. It's all a joke to them. Anyway. Back to food banks in a moment, but moving on to Brexit. Post-Brexit policy chaos may mean farmers miss nature-friendly payments. So farmers may miss out on thousands of pounds after government chaos over the post-Brexit nature-friendly farming schemes caused them not to apply. The schemes were developed to replace the EU's old subsidy system for farmers, which paid accordingly how much land they managed. The new English system would instead pay for public goods such as improving the environment and enriching biodiversity. But long delays over implementing the schemes, first proposed by Michael Gove when he was Environment Secretary back in 2018, but delayed many times since then, has fueled anxiety that they might be diluted or dropped altogether. In September, when Liz Truss became Prime Minister, The Observer revealed that the government was now looking at weakening or scrapping the schemes. The new Environment Secretary, Therese Coffey, has since reassured farming groups that the schemes are to remain almost entirely unscathed, with a full update coming in coming weeks. Okay. Do you believe Therese Coffey? I don't. Pilot schemes known as the Sustainable Farming Initiative are now in place and will serve as tasters for how the environmental land management schemes will ideally operate before it's fully phased in. The schemes pay farmers for improving soil quality, the countryside stewardship, which covers things like trees and air quality and water quality. So I find this very difficult to believe, because on the one hand, you have the government saying to water companies, yeah, pump raw sewage into rivers and lakes, we don't have a problem with that. And on the other hand, they're saying to farmers, yeah, we're going to compensate you if you improve water quality and air quality. Somebody is going to get shortchanged. Somebody is going to get thrown under a bus. Who do you think it is? But new figures given in response to the written parliamentary question show that fewer than 2,000 applications have been submitted to SFI out of the farming community of about 83,000 businesses, a rate that Labour calls pitifully low. The payments are designed to protect food quality, food security and business stability in rural and agricultural communities. Farmers are facing issues such as soaring fuel, feed and fertiliser costs. And this is the Tories pissing off their base. They should be actually looking after farmers, making sure that farmers are supported, because I don't know why, but farmers tend to vote Conservative and not Labour or Liberal Democrat. For some reason, they think the Conservatives are on their side, and we're starting to see a shift, of course, from Conservatives to the Labour Party from farmers, because they see we've been thrown under a bus by Brexiteers, we've been thrown under a bus by the Conservatives. They don't care about us. They only care about their friends and their donors. They don't care about the farming communities, and we're struggling and we're not getting any real support. And when the support is presented, it's delivered in a disastrous way that in the end we don't get access to it. Claire Sweet, thanks so much for that super chat. Farmers in Northern Ireland told they will only get UK money if they spray the land with chemicals. Sickening. It's depressing, because we should be working towards protecting the environment, providing better quality food, reducing the amount of chemicals that are put into the land. We should be moving away from this industrialization, and instead it's about, we'll promise to deliver money for these areas, but in the end they don't. And look, if you look at your local area, there's probably a park or a green area that was supported by EU funding in the past. Now that EU funding is gone, it's not going to be supported anymore. And unfortunately, I think even if the Labour Party get in, there's going to be less money available for parks and green areas. Except Scottish farmers. Yeah, another argument for Scottish independence, I would believe. Let's see, it goes on. Home Office is putting 2.6 million EU citizens at risk of removal, court hears. The government is putting 2.6 million EU citizens at risk of detention or removal from the country by the Home Office, the High Court has heard. The claim was made at a judicial review of the Home Office implementation of a part of the withdrawal agreement guaranteeing the rights of about 6 million EU citizens living in the country before Brexit. Mr. Justice Kane was told that the Home Office rules contain a fundamental feature which threatens the right of a person to live, work, retire, or get access to healthcare. Excuse me. The case is being brought to by the Independent Monitoring Authority, a statutory body set up to protect the rights of EU citizens settled in the country before Brexit. The effect of the Secretary of State's scheme is that person with legal that person will automatically lose their rights to reside in the UK, making them an illegal overstayer who is liable to detention or removal. Robert Palmer KC for the IMA told the court in his opening argument. He said that the result of the loss of their rights is that they will be exposed to considerable serious consequences affecting their right to live, work and access social security, support and housing in the UK. This was supposed to be put to bed I think it was at the beginning of this year or the beginning of last year, and unfortunately it's back on the chopping block once again, these protections for EU citizens. Once again, there is no good news when it comes to Brexit. It's all bad news. It's bad news for people living in the UK. It's bad news for British citizens living abroad, and it's bad for EU citizens living in the UK as well. There's no benefits here at all. It's all about keeping a small fringe happy, who are never happy. Let me read some of your comments, guys. Wealthy farmers vote Tory because they're part of the British establishment, plus the Tories had a tradition of supported stewardship of the land. Northern Ireland payments are controlled, come from Dublin. They all switched in 2007 due to EU rules, and UK screwed up payments due to the new IT system. Hey, great. Yeah, it's always some sort of IT problem that messes these things up, which is a real pain, because instead of investment in new infrastructure, there's always about we need to cut back. And this is a consequence of, when we talk about austerity, we tend to think about how there's less money for public services, and it will eventually affect ordinary people. But it also affects ordinary people in indirect ways, such as systems not being upgraded. I remember reading about a system which is still paper based because it hasn't been upgraded. I think it was QA Libraries talking about that. Anyway, let's move on. Before I get to cost of living, I just wanted to touch on this story. Some good news, finally some good news for the world and for the environment. Probably even more important than what's happening at COP27. Bolsonaro is gone. He has, gone for now anyway, and we have Lula as the new president of Brazil.
Speaking to a huge crowd here, Lula said that this election, riddled with violent incidents and fake news, was not a battle between him and Bolsonaro, but a battle between civilization and barbarism. Bolsonaro has been waging a bitter culture war here in Brazil and overseen soaring levels of destruction of the Amazon, but he's also still wildly popular. We also still don't know, though, whether Bolsonaro is going to accept his defeat or not. World leaders, including Joe Biden, have been calling to congratulate Lula, but throughout the campaign, just like his friend Donald Trump, Bolsonaro has been suggesting he would not accept defeat. A short while ago, one of his sons tweeted thanking his supporters, his voters, but not saying a great deal more, certainly not alleging fraud. All eyes are now on what Bolsonaro says next. This is a deeply polarized country.
L is for Lula. Euphoria in the streets of Sao Paulo at the left-wing veterans' momentous victory. Relief at the defeat of Brazil's divisive far-right president.
Somebody says he looks strangely like Alan Sugar. Lula looks a bit like Alan Sugar. That's right, that's true, but very, very different.
Good has triumphed over evil. Evil is defeated. We want more books, less guns.
This is the end of fascism in this country. These people just appeared from nowhere alongside Bolsonaro. Now they have to go back to the sewer.
A rapturous welcome for the president-elect.
It's not right that a people who are so loving, so happy, who love samba, have suffered so much because of a fascist government that didn't care about them, that didn't care about black people, about indigenous people.
It is an astonishing political comeback by Lula. And for many Brazilians, it's a time to celebrate, a time to let loose after 4 bruising years. But it's also the narrowest election victory in Brazil's democratic history.
Lula's promising to overturn Bolsonaro's legacy, tackling poverty, ending deforestation. But Bolsonaro's allies will dominate Congress.
How worried are you that Bolsonarismo clearly still is a force in Brazil?
I think that it's not something that's going to be fixed anytime soon. I think that my generation will probably witness a lot of it still, and they're angry. They're not going to take it lightly.
For Bolsonaro's voters, there were tears. Some of his allies have accepted the result. So far, he's stayed silent.
Following this, Bolsonaro has come out and said that he's going to be he will hand over power, but he doesn't accept the result, like Donald Trump. Trump of the tropics, as he was sometimes described, which of course is going to be problematic, and the fact that his party holds sway in the parliament means that it's going to be difficult for the new president to get through a lot of his policies. So I'm hoping that there are some parliamentary elections soon, so those people can be swept out, and then Lula can get the policies that he wants through parliament, because that's where his real power will be. So that, of course, there's great that there's some good news there, and that things are starting to change. It would have been pretty bad if Bolsonaro had won that. It would have been once again back into Trump-like territory. So, guys, I want to move on. I think this is somebody from Matt Hancock's constituency. It says here, Matt Hancock, the invisible man. This is what is occurring in the working class area of his constituency. He's nowhere to be seen. I doubt his racing buddies and donors in Newmarket will be getting cold this winter. And this person has posted this image. Warm hubs. Haverhill churches open for all to keep warm this winter. And then they give you the timelines. So the calendar dates. So Mondays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. River of Life Community Church, Chalkstone Community Centre. This will be a warm hub or a warm bank. On Wednesdays from 10:30 to 1 p.m. Thursdays 9:30 to 3 p.m. and Fridays 9 a.m. 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. So people who can't afford, probably for elderly people, not for work, for people who are maybe unemployed or disabled, maybe they can go there during the early part of the morning and afternoon. People who are probably working won't be, of course, going there. There'll be, I presume there will be something in the evening for them as well. But there you have it. In Matt Hancock's constituency, while he's off having fun, his constituents are going to a warm bank provided by the local church. Absolutely disgraceful. Anyway, moving on. Well, sticking with the cost of living, this is from a few days ago, but it's still valid.
I want my son to be happy. I feel it's a bit unsafe.
It's a sobering image. A mother and her 2-year-old son, homeless.
What's happening? They group all of us together, people with mental health and people who drink and do drugs and stuff, and then you've got us mums, and we don't really have a choice. We've got to be here.
This is their temporary accommodation. They've been here for months.
I've got to think at night time and stuff if it's safe, and, I normally lock my door with my buggy up against it just as that extra protection.
Nicole fled domestic abuse. She works full-time but still needs housing allowance. But that doesn't cover rent. She makes this 2-hour journey daily to her son's childcare.
Can I get on the back, please?
In a place she's struggling to find an affordable rental in, or that will take on a single mother.
I've worked since I was 17. I've dedicated my life to working, so why am I finding it so difficult? It's a little unfair, but...
See, this person, I think it's great the Sky News covered this, that they, many people, unfortunately, and it's the narrative that the far right and people even within the Conservative Party try to paint anyone on benefits as a scrounger or somebody who's not working. And of course, there are many people who can't work. It's not their fault. They need to rely on benefits. But there are a lot of people who are also working and on benefits. And the fact that this lady here has to travel 2 hours to take her child to affordable childcare means it's, this is an extra cost for her and it's an extra burden for her. And now she's going to end up homeless.
I just, in the back of my head, I say to myself, you keep fighting, eventually you'll find somewhere or you'll get something and it'll be worth it.
Are you okay? I know you're doing everything for Logan, but are you okay?
I mean, I'm tired. I'm very tired. I just put my son's needs before mine.
New figures given exclusively to Sky News show the gap between housing allowance and the actual cost of private rent has risen by 40% in just 5 months. People in 2-bed homes now have to find another £1,500 extra a year above what they get in housing benefit. Overall, affordable homes for those on housing allowance have declined by more than a third, leaving just 8% of properties within budget.
This isn't a sort of a prediction of things getting worse. It already is worse. We know that rough sleeping is going up. We know that councils have nowhere to put people. And unless in the November financial statement, the government increases housing benefit in line with inflation, just like they're talking about for other benefits, this is going to be catastrophic.
But this is a situation years in the making.
And for the same reasons, a lack of social housing pushing people into the private sector, a lack of private rentals pushing up prices, and that's down to low stock and longer lets. Now, all of this has got worse in the last few months because of inflation, mortgage rate rises and the cost of living crisis. And that last compounding factor, the fact that housing allowance has been frozen for nearly 3 years.
The government point to a range of extra support available, but no mention of raising housing allowance, and local authorities are stretched.
Because they don't want to increase housing allowance. They just want the market to take over. And you're seeing instead what's happening is more and more people are being forced to cut everything out of their lives in order just to survive. Because having a roof over your head is probably what most people are they see it as their greatest priority. Food on the table, yes, but also having a roof over your head, because if the rent goes up if the rent goes up and the support from the government doesn't go up, then you're going to have to cut something. And that's why you're hearing so many stories about people cutting back to 1 meal a day or going without food for a couple of days, making sure that their children get fed first, because they know that if they don't pay the rent, they're going to be out on the street. And that's why it's so important that the government fill this gap. But then that would require borrowing. That would require increasing taxes. And they don't want to do that, of course, because who would they increase taxes on? Well, they can't increase taxes anymore on people who are struggling at the bottom. They need to increase taxes on the wealthiest in society, and they don't want to do that. Almost at the end, guys, but I want to finish with one final story. I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning. No evidence. MPs were bullied, says report into fracking vote chaos. So it was about a week ago, when Liz Truss's last vote in the House of Commons, I think it was, there was a bit of pushing and shoving, but allegedly there was no bullying. The controversial and chaotic vote on fracking last month did see some MPs shout and crowd closely together, but there was no evidence to indicate bullying or intimidation. An official report for the Speaker, the Commons Speaker, has concluded. The Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, ordered the inquiry by Commons officials after claims that some wavering Conservative MPs were physically pulled into the no voting lobby following the debate on the 19th of October. The melee took place as MPs voted on a Labour Opposition Day motion, which would have sought to ban fracking in England, which ironically, as I think, unless I'm mistaken, Rishi Sunak has overturned. Okay, so there was all this for nothing. Liz Truss's then government ended up winning the vote easily. The report for Hoyle, compiled by 3 senior parliamentary officials, found that while there was evidence of shouting and intemperate language, claims of jostling seemed caused by a large number of MPs gathering around, and no members believed to have been under pressure to change their vote. It found that much of the chaos was created by confusion over whether the vote was deemed a confidence vote a day before Truss agreed to step down as Prime Minister. The Tory MPs had been told that it was a confidence issue, meaning that they could lose the party whip if they voted with Labour or abstained. But near the end of the debate, the Energy Minister, Graham Stewart, told them that it was not something the report said came as a surprise to both MPs and Conservative whips. As the whips left to seek guidance from number 10, a crowd of agitated MPs, Tory MPs gathered around the No lobby, which was swollen by the arrival of opposition MPs who had just voted yes, and heard rumours that the now absent Chief Whip, Wendy Morton, had her and her deputy had resigned. So there was chaos, but at the end, there was no bullying. Yes, if you believe that. This raises another question, and I've talked about it before. Why are MPs forced to vote a particular way? Shouldn't MPs be allowed a free vote? And I've said this before when it came to, for example, the Brexit bills and stuff like that. The Labour Party shouldn't have voted with the government when it came to one of the Brexit bills. The party should have said, yes, we would like you to vote this way, but allow a free vote. Let MPs vote according to their conscience. I'm completely against this idea of a 3-line whip. Maybe there are some exceptions, but generally it should not. The whip should not be able to tell the party members how to vote. They are there to elect. They're elected by their constituents. They should be representing their constituents. They're not there to represent the party. That should not be their priority. And that's why you're seeing a lot of MPs vote a particular way and then talk a different way when it comes to a particular policy. They say, yeah, I care about free school meals, for example, but they voted against them because it was a Labour motion. And they know that if they vote against their party, they'll be punished. Yes, it's important that there is party loyalty to a certain extent, but instead what we're seeing generally is party put before country. Anyway, the English voting for clowns lowers us all into a circus of crazy. Yes. Banana Republic. Corbyn's 3-line whips on key Brexit votes were a disgrace. Once again, I completely disagree with the 3-line whip. Unless it's voting, for something about national security, I generally think it's a point of leaving it to the MPs. And it should be an open ballot. So we should know how MPs vote, but they should vote with their confidence because they should be held to account by their constituents. So the MPs should have to tell their constituents, I voted this way or I voted that way, and they should be held to account. They should actually go back to their constituents at the next election and say why I voted this way or that way. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Great to see you on the stream. Just a small side, I want to pay tribute to the heroes of the Battle of Britain, which concluded 82 years ago yesterday. The battle that we would have lost if it was not for Braverman's idea of invaders. Well said. Thanks for that super chat. Excuse me. Unfortunately, the people that the brave pilots were fighting in 1940, now the people they were fighting are now in charge, it seems. There was somebody saying, why are so many Tory MPs wearing the poppy when their side lost? They're the ones on the wrong side, it seems, of history. Look at the type of rhetoric. Which side do you think Nigel Farage would have been on in 1940? Which side do you think Suella Braverman would be on in 1940? These people are on the far right. These people would have been betraying their country. back in World War II. I don't know if they would have been actively fighting with the Germans, or they would have been at least providing some sort of support within the UK. Disgraceful content, disgraceful behaviour. So, well, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thank you so much for your support. Before we finish, of course, we have our one for the road. I hope if you're on Patreon, make sure to check out the Discord channel after the stream on the post-stream chat, and I'll see you on there. But before we finish, of course, we have our one for the road. Thanks once again to everyone who came on. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks for all of the super chats. Greatly appreciated. And I'll see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Have a great week. And I hope you enjoy this. I'm sure you will.
The Home Secretary couldn't be with you today. She has urgent business with IT support. However, she has asked me to brief you on the new Home Office glossary. So here are a few words and phrases and their new correct definitions. Witch hunt. Any investigation into wrongdoing by the Home Secretary. Because we all know that witches don't exist, and neither does any wrongdoing by the Home Secretary. Dream. The sight of refugees being flown against their will to Rwanda. Anything else is, of course, a nightmare, and probably conjured up by the tofu-eating wokerati of North London, a group of individuals who tend to engage in a lot of witch hunts, and are probably also globalists. Invasion. A number of people trying to seek asylum in this country. You could even call it an armed invasion, because the vast majority of them have limbs, and it sounds scarier, which is good. Flood. Sea invasion, but somehow worse, because how do you hold back the sea? Migrants. A catch-all term for any of that lot, not to be confused with expats. Illegal. Anything that a migrant might do in trying to come to this country. It may not be actually against the law, but as far as we're concerned, it's illegal. Not to be confused with an honest mistake, like leaking sensitive documents or using a personal phone for state business. Ungrateful. Any migrant complaining about the standard of their accommodation. I mean, if you can't deal with a bit of diphtheria or scabies, do you really belong in this country? Go back to where you came from. Our cheery catchphrase that sums up most of our immigration strategy. Not to be linked to where did all the workers go, which is a totally different issue and not in any way related. Goodwin's Law. Our basic philosophy, in which it's vitally important to behave like Nazis to stop people voting for Nazis. And finally, a broken system, which is an accurate description of the asylum process, which is both a problem that's been getting worse and worse for years, and yet also nothing to do with the Conservative government that's been in power for over a decade. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an urgent meeting with Border Force. Apparently Matt Hancock is leaving the country to be on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and we're working on ways to stop him coming back in.
Wonderful. As always, great video there from Matt. So have a great week, guys. I'll see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, and as always, be safe. Good night.